The Reeds, who bought a house up here on North Main Street last year. They moved into town and they had to sell their house in New Hampshire, and they're loving living here in Florence section of Northampton. It's a very community and family friendly place, and they're loving it.
We came from Lebanon, New Hampshire, and we actually met Craig at an open house across the street. We had just found out that we were moving.
He wasn't like
Oh yeah,
all over you right away. He was sitting there, he was doing some work
we were
on an
talking
iPad.
about the bike trail. So knowledgeable and so friendly and great.
Probably didn't realize he was actually the realtor until about 10 minutes later or something, you know? So it was very low key.
He was incredibly helpful. Even though we had a realtor in New Hampshire, he was talking us through that transaction, you know, while he was helping us get things sorted down here too. So he was incredibly supportive.
And he smiled a lot.
I used to live out near Boston, and one day I just picked up the phone and called, and Craig answered and spent over an hour on the phone with me explaining about the area. My partner and I were interested in moving out and moving our 2 kids here, and he was great. He took the time to show us everywhere. So we bought our first house here, and at that point we were buyers with him. And then when we were ready to sell that house, we were both buyers and sellers. He helped with both. This is actually the 3rd time that I've worked with Craig.
I've always looked forward to the next day at work. I just love seeing people at the closing table who are full of smiles. Andrew and Linda started off as bed and breakfast guests. She was coming into grad school for her doctorate here. Andrew is a software engineer, got a job in downtown Northampton. They started off as bed and breakfast guests, and got an apartment, and then bought a house through me. And then they just went through normal life. They've sort of outgrown their house. And so I helped them find the new house and helped them sell their existing house. And those dominoes have to fall in the correct order.
We didn't really know what we wanted when we were looking for a house, I guess. And so Craig showed us, very patiently took us around and kind of showed us different neighborhoods and houses. And
He really helped sort of walk us through the entire process of buying a house before we started. So we knew sort of what we were in for, which helped. He also loves this area. He has a real passion for this area. And I think that really comes across when you talk to him.
we looked in Holyoke as well, and Craig has a real big passion for Holyoke. And so he took us around at interesting, different historic parts of Holyoke.
Because I grew up in Holyoke, and I love selling houses in Holyoke to young couples that are going to come in and fix up their house. And Holyoke is a very historic community. It was actually the first planned industrial city in the United States. There were grid pattern streets, sidewalks, porches, you knew your neighbors. And those are places that are sort of lost today. It's very important for us to be able to develop these as attractive places to live, because the future is not in the suburban districts. The future is actually in these small cities and making those worth living in again. I would like buyers who are community oriented, who know the memories that they had growing up that were positive based on their experience of living in a traditional community, and they want their kids to be able to experience that. And in many places, those are the historic neighborhoods in the community.
We had always wanted an older home, and this house is about 150 years old. So not only did it have to have sufficient space for his business, but it also had to please me in a place that I'd like to live for a very long time. He has an antique book and map business, so we wanted a barn or some other space. When we bought this house, the barn here was not quite falling down, but had see-through walls and was just a
It was a barn.
mess. And Craig kept calling us his visionary clients because we didn't care about that. What we cared about was that there was this physical structure that abutted the house. He understood what we were trying to accomplish, so the house didn't have to have it when he showed it to us. It had to be capable of it. And I think that that was part of what made it work so well with us. He really got us. He learned what we were looking for in a house, but also what we were looking for in a community.
He was just very good at being able to scout out and filter for us.
He was able to rule out a whole lot before we ever saw them because he knew what we were looking for. And I felt like he was incredibly patient with us because we were being so picky, and I never felt that he was pressuring us on to buy a house just to be done. This is actually a map that Craig gave us of when a railroad was being planned going into Whately. His interest in the history of the area was great because that played in as well in terms of finding a place we would like. We gave people tours and they had absolutely no idea what the inside of the barn was because we made it look like the old barn on the outside, even though inside it's totally different. That was one place where Craig, could really shine. He was as visionary as we were in terms of not what it was, but what it needed to be. We ended up with the perfect setup for us.
Whenever I mention, Craig Della Penna is my realtor, it's been such positive feedback that I've gotten from people, and there's just such a good energy around Craig. I absolutely would recommend Craig. I think he's amazing, and he's extremely authentic and trustworthy.
I would definitely recommend Craig. He can take a pretty stressful situation, buying and selling a house, and make it as stress-free as possible. It's just his willingness to intercede on behalf of the buyer or the seller is really why I would strongly recommend him.
I would absolutely recommend Craig, and in fact I have. He was just a nice guy to spend the time with and made us feel comfortable, never felt pressured, felt like we were all in this together.
If you have a house in Northampton that you'd like to sell, you're shopping around for a realtor to list your property, please do give me a call because I love this area and I love the old historic houses here. I love to bring in new families that also can appreciate what we have here. I'm not a generic realtor. I get it, why this place is special. And the Pioneer Valley as a whole is my home and I'm not going anywhere else. I have this ability to be fearless about just switching gears and just having fun along the way, I guess.
I would definitely recommend Craig.
That's our hokey little.
I like it. Nice.
Add something fun.
It's nice because it's not just like a relationship that lasts during the transaction, but it's really a relationship that is sort of spans years beyond. That sounds hokey.
No, it is true.
I know where you were going with that. I thought you were going to have a cheer going on. We're working the cheer. We'll do Barbara Walter.
Then I asked him, what more tissue can I use?
We could go on and on. But, the full 2-hour documentary.